Welcome to QXA, the podcast. We answer your biggest questions about trucks, SUV, off-roading, custom builds, and everything in between. This show is proudly sponsored by Off-RoadX, the ultimate enthusiast brand built for those who live and breathe adventure. This right here, Peter Lindsay, the owner of Off-RoadX and a true off-road expert.
And that is Spenser Goolsby. He's a dude. He likes things. He's enthusiastic. But the best of all, he wants to learn.
Yeah.
And that's why he's here. But he's learning every week. Every week we do these shows, you're learning more and more.
Yeah. So buckle up. Let's get into it. This is QXA. Today we're going to break down the top vehicle modifications for off-roading. We're going to go over performance upgrades versus aesthetic upgrades.
Okay. I like
what
that.
really matters.
Sounds good.
So let's dive into breaking down the top vehicle modification for off-roading.
Yeah, I
What do you got?
think top vehicle modifications, we always start with tires, right? It's the only thing that touches the pavement, the road, the dirt, and it is the most important part of any vehicle. I think there you got to include the wheels, right? Because add a little style, a little flair, maybe you get a bigger offset, a little poke is what we call it in the industry.
Oh, wait, stop. What's a poke?
Yeah, so a poke is when a wheel or tire sticks out beyond the fender.
Okay.
All right, so like when you're looking at a vehicle and you're looking down the side of the vehicle and the tires are all and wheels are all sucked inside the fender.
I'm not to profile people, but I feel like I know what people have those kind of tires. Don't hate me.
Yeah. So there's that, and then there's the guys that like a little poke, or the girls that like a little poke, right? I didn't mean it that way. The girls and guys that like a little poke, right?
I think that's wrong for every level, but okay.
It's not.
The poke is more, it's aesthetic, but at the same time doesn't have performance in it.
It does have a little bit of performance. So obviously you're widening your track a little bit, and that gives you a little bit more stability with your vehicle. So as you raise a vehicle, like suspension, which is a great off-road modification to do, what you're doing is you're increasing your center of gravity. You're making it so that your vehicle is easier to tip if you get into some off-camber situations. Adding a little bit of wider track helps reduce that center of gravity increase. So yes, there's a little bit of performance upgrade to it, but it's mostly aesthetic.
Got you. But the adding the poke could affect your turning radius from my understanding.
I mean,
unless you have a big lift?
No. It's so minuscule that geometry change that it's not really going to be noticeable to almost anybody. It's primarily like when you're doing poke, you're primarily doing it for aesthetics. But like I said, there is that small benefit of widening your track, giving you more stability as well. But it's so small because typically when you are poking your tires or poking your wheels out, you're basically, at maximum doing it like 2-3 inches, I think. And that would be pretty extreme. Most people are going to do it by like a half an inch or an inch or something like that. I mean, you see my rigs, right?
Yeah.
So my Raptor's got a tiny bit of poke sticking out, maybe half an inch to an inch. And then my Bronco looks absolutely ridiculous because it's got 5 inches of poke sticking out. But it's also lifted like 5 inches. So we went way up on it. So we also went a little bit wider on it. We also took the fenders away, so it just looks ridiculous. Yeah. But yeah, so you've got wheels and tires, suspension modifications, lighting, bumpers, protection. I think that covers it all, or covers the majority of those types of things. And then when you get into overlanding, or when you get into like overnight camping, or just taking longer trips, then you can get into a lot of specifics like refrigerators or sleeping arrangements inside your vehicle and outside your vehicle, like rooftop tents and things like that. So there's a lot of other modifications that you can really get into. It's a wide world out there.
Right.
Man.
So it just depends on what you want to dial and target. There's everything out there these days, right?
Yeah. The community is growing by billions every year. Billions of dollars every year gets sunk into the off-road and overlanding and rock crawling and everything.
For someone that I really don't go off-roading, right? I like to protect my vehicle. It's clean 24/7, and I have children, and it's a tough challenge for me. But So all these modifications and all these parts and stuff like that, do I get these on Amazon?
You
Is there
can.
quality parts out there, or is it?
Yeah, I think you really got to know what you're buying when you go to Amazon. There's
Right.
situations and scenarios where people have bought things off of Amazon and it's hurt them or nearly killed them because they're safety related and they're going for the cheap aspect of it.
Yeah.
So I always tell people really know what you're buying, know the brand before you buy it. Amazon's an okay place to find that, but you can find good stuff there and really dangerous things
Okay.
there. I think talking with an expert is the best way to do it. Even if you end up buying the stuff yourself, that's totally fine. OffRoadX carries millions of parts and accessories, and yet we have tons of customers that bring us their parts and accessories that they bought and want help with it. So
Gotcha.
it happens, and that's totally fine for people to go out and do their own research and find their own products. But when you talk with an expert, we'll at least give you the advice on like, hey, that's a good brand. Usually anything that's going to be good for that. Hey, that's a safety item.
Yeah.
Don't buy it on Amazon.
Yeah.
You know, buy it from this brand or buy it directly from us. We'll make sure you get the best stuff.
So next time I'm on Amazon late at night, I'm just going to call you at 2 a.m. and say pros and cons.
Exactly.
Let me know.
Right? Yeah, and I'll say that one's going to cause you bodily harm, and that one is going to save your life.
Okay.
So there you go.
Yeah, now you're basically a doctor, because you helped me stay alive. So next thing I want to ask you is a little bit about performance upgrades versus aesthetic upgrades. I'm probably more on the aesthetic side because once again, I don't want to damage the vehicle I spent a lot of money on.
Yeah.
I know you're big on performance on one. You got the Bronco that's just outrageous again, right? So what do you think for someone going into this realm of new to off-roading? They want a little bit of both, right? Yeah. So what's the best thing to do? I know tire tread is good, rims and packages is good, lift kits is good. Is there anything outside of that specials or like roll cages? I mean, that's cool and efficiently safe, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I think when you get to roll cages, you're going into a certain aspect of off-roading that is pretty extreme.
Yeah.
The regular guy that gets a Tacoma or a 4Runner or a Jeep or a Bronco, they don't typically need a roll cage. You're not going to get into a scenario, hopefully, where you're going to need that roll cage. If you need a roll cage or you're thinking about a roll cage, you're probably pretty serious about off-roading.
Or a bad driver, right? So
that could be the case.
Is that stuff that you guys can install here at the shop?
Yeah, absolutely. So we build custom bumpers, custom cages, custom everything.
Okay.
So people can come to us and say, hey, I want this. I want it specifically this way. And we can talk to them about the type of metals we're using, the thickness of the steel, the type of bending we're doing. We've got all the equipment here to do all those types of custom work and everything like that. In reality, though, again, if you are doing that to your rig, you're pretty serious already. Okay. You know what it takes to do what you're about to do, right? Yeah. When we go back to like the aesthetics versus performance, I think it really depends on the person. I think you can have both, obviously. I think the Bronco is a prime example of both, right? Aesthetically looks bonkers. Yeah. But it also really performs. It's really functional. Now, having the tires stick 4 or 5 inches outside the fender, that's truly aesthetic.
That's just a flex on all of the baby Broncos out there.
Exactly. But there's so many negatives to doing that. Like, I can go over 15 negatives of why you shouldn't have your tires sticking 5 inches outside your fenders. But it looks super cool.
It's super sick.
Yeah. Whereas the Raptor is almost built all for performance. People look at the Raptor and they go, oh, that's a pretty cool rig. But when you really start to dive into it, you realize that it's really built to perform. Yeah. We haul over 1,000 pounds of gear when we off-road. That's not something that a Raptor typically has in the back of the truck. No. And then we jump it with that 1,000 pounds of weight in the back.
And something I didn't know about a Raptor was, I mean, it's a V6.
Yes.
And for someone that doesn't know anything about engines, I'm like, I had a V8, Hemi, Ram, not a Dodge. A Ram that's different to me too. But a Raptor is just night and day different to that vehicle. Yeah. So
Raptors. Yeah. I think one thing that some people don't understand is like an F-150. Oh, I can just buy an F-150 for a third of the price or 2/3 of the price, and I can make it into a Raptor. Yeah, you can, but you're going to spend a lot more to get there. Like
Really?
a Raptor really is a different truck. There's a lot of modifications that Ford did in the chassis and the way that the frame and the suspension mounts to the frame and all kinds of different things like that that really make it a completely different truck.
Yeah, I mean, it's like a wide body, everything.
Yeah.
It's a very sexy truck, dude. Not biased, but
You're not biased because you might own one?
Yeah, maybe. I don't even know, you know? I know that thing will never go off-road, though. So, but thanks for having me, by the way. Off-RoadX, great fan of it. Good to the community out here. And our community has some questions for you, right?
Awesome. Let's hear it. I don't know any of these this week, by the way.
That's perfect.
Yeah, so I know none. So I'm gonna hear these for the first time.
All right. So we're gonna dive in. Got a couple of them for you.
Yeah.
What's the first mod I should make to my off-road vehicle?
Ooh, I think we talked about this, I think, in the last episode. I think tires is it.
It's pretty important.
Yeah. So let's go beyond tires this week, and let's go to protection. So if you're going to seriously off-road, I think you need protection. And that would be skid plates, that would be rock sliders, maybe steel bumpers, front and rear, stuff like that. I think this might be the most boring of all the modifications that you're going to do. Because if you do tires, you see them, they look cool, and they have immediate functionality, right? You feel it when you go down the road. If you do lights, or if you do a refrigerator, or if you do a rooftop tent, like all these things.
That's that aesthetics, though, you know?
Correct. You get all this kind of stuff. When you do skid plates,
you're
not
boring.
Exactly, boring. It's real boring until you're stranded in the middle of the wilderness because you punctured your transmission oil pan because you didn't have a skid plate over it.
Trying to be cool, you get stuck in the woods.
That's right. That's right. Yeah. So I think the most important after tires is going to be protection. So that's skid plates, rock sliders, things like that.
Perfect. All right, next one for you. Are lift kits really worth it? And what's the best height for my setup?
Wow. Well, depending on the setup, changes a lot of different things.
Okay.
So I need to know this person's setup. But let's just say suspension upgrades are worth it.
Okay.
I think that's the short answer. And then it really depends on the type of rig. Let's just use your Raptor for a prime example. I think that Raptors sit really, really well at that 2.5 inch to 3 inch lift front and rear. I think that's where they're the happiest. I think that's where they perform the best. Now, obviously, you can go higher than that when you go to like a mid-travel or a long-travel setup. But I think for a stock Raptor where you're going to buy off-the-shelf bolt-on products, I think that 2.5 to 3 inch is where you want to be. And believe it or not, that stands true for a lot of off-road vehicles. If you go to a 4Runner, a Tacoma, if you go into a Jeep, Jeeps have an ability to go pretty high pretty easily.
Yeah.
So they actually would 5-6 inches are still pretty good.
Wow.
Like pretty reasonable to get there and everything. But I think for all of the independent front suspension, IFS vehicles out there, I think that 2.5 to 3 inches across the board is a really good sweet spot to be. You don't have to change your whole suspension setup. You can just change your shocks and springs and typically end up getting there and the vehicle will still be reliable for you.
Right on. I know very little about shocks and springs, but I do know some. Okay.
Yeah.
BDS is a good brand, right?
Yes, absolutely.
I hope so, because I put it on a vehicle before. And you got Fox shocks.
Absolutely.
And then you got High Country.
Yeah.
What is your preferred brand that you could go with? What's your go-to if you're to recommend me?
Yeah.
And I come in here with just a regular F-150 looking to add some suspension and some.
Absolutely. We will never put on a product that we think will waste an employee or waste a customer's money or put them into a situation where they won't be getting the best out of their vehicle.
Okay.
So I'm going to stay away from naming certain brands right
now.
But there are certain brands that if a customer says, I want to put this brand on my vehicle, I tell them, well, you might as well throw your money in the trash. Because that's where you're going to end up throwing the parts in 6 months or a year. The brands that we sell the most of are Fox, Icon, and Bilstein. Now, Fox and Icon, they're kind of top tier.
Yeah.
And King is up there too. We sell King as well.
Yeah.
So those three brands, BDS is up there too. That's a very good brand. But we sell Fox, King, and Icon. And Icon is typically my go-to.
Okay.
Icon gives you so many choices and variability of choices, and so it allows customers to kind of fit a very high level suspension into their budget. Now, if that's still too expensive or still too difficult, there's other brands like Falcon shocks, which are really good for the money, believe it or not. Just make a quality product. It's adjustable, so you can have softer ride or stiffer ride.
Yeah.
And then I always go, like, Bilstein is a fine brand. Like, it is, their quality. And the great thing about Bilstein to me is, like, low price to entry. You're going to get some performance boost from it, and it's going to feel good. But if you break those, guess what? Almost every shop on the corner sells them.
Okay.
So that's the benefit of going to something like that, is like, you don't have this, if you, for instance, and I'm not trying to poke at King or Icon or Fox, but like those brands, you break something and you're in the middle of Missouri somewhere, you may not be able to get that part as quickly as you need.
Rare / exotic shock.
Yeah.
So I don't know much again, right? Yeah. So I've seen shocks that are just, it's a shock, right? And you have the ones that has a hydraulic pouch on it, right?
Yeah.
So
pouch, I love that.
I don't know, right? Container.
Yeah. But am I better off to just get the stick or the one with the accessories?
Yes.
Right?
That's called
what is it? You tell me. You're the
so that additional pouch is called a remote reservoir.
Okay.
And what that does is that holds either additional oil or gas inside of that container.
Okay.
And typically that container is separated from the shock. So there's usually a line that goes between the shock and the reservoir. And what that is really for is mainly for heat dissipation. So when you have more fluid, obviously there's more heat that can be soaked up in that fluid.
Okay.
And then by having them separated, you have that additional reservoir being cooled while the fluid is getting transferred between the shock and that reservoir.
So it's cycling through?
That's correct, yes.
Oh, wow.
And so that reservoir gives you that. So in the grand scheme of things, does it perform better than a standard just shock without the reservoir?
Yeah.
When you're driving down the road, no. It feels the same. It'll act the same. And for those people that aren't going to do like high-speed off-roading or not going to be cycling their suspension, cycling is that in and out motion that you get with your suspension. If people aren't going to be doing that a lot,
it's not needed?
It's not needed. Okay. Just go with the standard shock and you're going to be completely fine. Now, when you're going to these high-performance off-road brands, you do want to rebuild them from time to time. And each brand has their own recommendations. So some brands say, hey, after 5,000 miles of off-roading, 50,000 miles of off-roading, 10,000 miles of off-roading, and they'll break it down for you. And then you just want to have those rebuilt. Versus if you go with like an OEM shock, then you just unfortunately toss it and buy another one and put it in when it goes bad.
More affordable for sure on those, right?
Absolutely.
All right. Next one I got for you. What's the best tire size for off-roading without ruining any daily drivability? Sorry.
Yeah. Okay. So again, this is rig specific.
Yeah.
I really think that like a lot of Toyotas. So let's go like Toyota 4Runner, the new Land Cruiser.
Yeah.
Those vehicles, I think like a 33 is about where you want to max out. That's a 33-inch tire. I think that's a really good sweet spot for a lot of people. The Tacoma can get a little bit bigger. You can get up to like a 35, which would be kind of maxing it out. So I think, again, 33 is really good spot. And then you go to like a Jeep. I think a Wrangler, you can kind of pick and choose. I think a 35 is a real good sweet spot for most people. It's still expensive, but fairly affordable at a 35. Okay. 33s are totally fine on it, but you can go 37s and 38s and 40s and 44s with a Jeep. So you can really kind of pick and choose what you want. But I think 35 is a good spot for that. And I think a 35 for the big off-road brands, so the Jeep Wrangler, the Ford Bronco, the F-150 Raptors, I think those vehicles really do well with a 35. I think a 35 is a sweet spot. There are different models and brands that 37s go good on and so forth and so on. But in the grand scheme of things, talk to an expert, talk with somebody that modifies these a lot, and they'll be able to tell you kind of where you should be.
So after you upgrade your tires, do you need to re-gear anything, or how does that play out, and how does that work?
Yeah. So sometimes yes.
Okay.
If you're going, for instance, let's say that your vehicle came with, and I'm going to get kind of technical here, but 323 gears. So
Okay.
let's say it goes to 323s, and you're going to put like a 40 on it. Well, you're definitely going to want to upgrade your gears. I would like go to a minimum of like 410s.
Okay.
You know, maybe even higher. You could go as high as like 515s with that size of a tire. So yes. But if your vehicle comes stock with pretty good gears, for instance, like our Bronco comes with 470s. Now we put the 37s on it, and it just doesn't care. Like 470s,
Just still pushing them.
yeah,
right?
it just doesn't care, right?
Yeah.
The Raptor has 410s in it, and it has no problems with running 35s and 37s. So the answer is yes. In certain situations, you do want to deal with the gears, but in most scenarios, if you bought an off-road vehicle already, you're gonna be probably okay with going up a few sizes.
Yeah, setup's kind of already built in there.
Yes.
Right on. All right, last one I got for you is, should I upgrade my suspension or install body armor first?
We answered this question in the intro. I didn't even know it. Body armor first.
Really?
Yeah, remember we talked about tires, then
I know, but I was
Skid
hoping by the end of the episode you forgot. And you're like, chicks dig big tires. That's what we're going for, right? But
Yeah.
you stay true to your word,
Yeah.
and you go for performance over aesthetics.
That's right. That's right.
Off-RoadX.
Yeah, exactly. So
Smart.
you want to go to that protection first.
Yeah.
And the reason is with the scenario I gave early on, you don't want to be the guy with a punctured,
Yeah. Yeah.
whatever.
You got big tires, but you're still high centered, and you're leaking out
Yeah.
radiator fluid or whatever.
Exactly.
That's it.
Yeah. And you could say, oh, if I got that suspension, I wouldn't have been bellied up on that obstacle. But, you're just playing with fire, right?
Eventually, you're going to nick a rock or something,
Yeah.
and you're going to be screwed out
Yeah.
there.
Prime example is my Raptor never has had an issue, and it's skid plated the whole way.
Yeah.
But we actually busted through a skid plate and smashed the transmission oil pan in Moab this year.
Oh.
And so, like, even if we didn't have that protection,
Is this the JB Weld story?
this is the JB Weld story. Yeah. You got to use what you have at your disposal to get off the trail.
That's going to be on the next, what you must have in your truck right there.
Oh, man.
Duct tape,
Yes.
JB Weld,
Yes.
air compressor.
There you go. That's it. That's all you need.
Safety. Go. All right. Well, to close out this, we're going to always kind of do some rapid fire questions.
Yeah.
Pete doesn't really know kind of what's happening here. I'm going to throw some random stuff at him and see how he responds. Hopefully it's good, all right? All right, bigger tires or better suspension?
Bigger tires.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, I
One
would-
of them's got a pouch.
Yeah. Now, the thing is, I say bigger tires, but sometimes you can't put the bigger tires on without putting the suspension on. So,
Chicken or the egg?
exactly.
Yeah.
But I typically would go tires first. Would I go tires first? Man, I'm gonna go back on my word here. I might go suspension first. Ooh,
If I came in and said, hey, Pete, I got this hoopty out here,
yeah.
but I want to throw some big tires because I'm going out in the wilderness to do some
Yeah.
crazy stuff, are you going to say your suspension can't handle these? Or are you going to say,
Yeah, this is tough.
Mhm.
I actually think it's going to be situationally based
Okay.
because some vehicles can pretty easily go
Got it.
up inside.
kind of how you mentioned too, if it's kind of already built for off-roading a little bit, then yes, it's going to be particular in its own scenario.
Yeah,
Gotcha.
I really think so. So, sorry, I backtracked on it and I didn't give an answer. It's situational.
Sometimes you just don't know.
All right, next one, matte or gloss finish?
Ooh, wow. You got to go gloss.
What?
You got to go gloss.
For what part though?
Uh,
If we're talking whole body, we're talking rims.
Oh, okay. Well,
Yes.
you didn't break it down like that. But I'm talking the car, the
Yeah.
vehicle. So I think gloss is the way to go. Gloss gives depth. When you have a matte finish, there's very little depth to the color of
Yeah.
your vehicle. So I really think that gloss, it gives you that depth. It allows that color to shine and to bring itself out. And so absolutely gloss there. Wheels. I'm looking over here. It's got a gloss wheel on the back, a matte wheel on the front.
I wish we had an extra camera to pan over here because I've been looking at a red rim the whole time, but I look back this way and there's a black one. So
Yeah. So one's gloss and one's matte too. So the front's matte, the back's gloss.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna go wheels, gloss. We're still going gloss.
Gloss.
Still going gloss. Yeah.
Alright.
Even though I think I think about all my vehicles, and I don't think any of them. One of them has gloss. All the rest have matte.
Really?
Yeah, and that one has one gloss wheel
Out of 4.
out of 4. That's right.
Very unique, Pete.
Yeah,
Very unique.
yeah.
Function over form or form over function?
Function over form. That's simple. We've talked about this a lot, and it's
Yeah.
really about, go after what's right for the vehicle to get you to the stage that you need to get to. So when we talk about function over form, we're talking about tires, gears, safety, bunch of stuff that isn't apparent a lot of times right off the bat.
Yeah.
We're going for form over function. Now we're talking, let's go to those lights.
Yeah.
Let's get a bunch of LEDs. Let's do some underglow.
Yeah.
Let's do some wild rims with a lot of poke, all that kind of stuff.
Right on. Yeah, I mean, like you said before, it's better off to be safe and have everything ready. And you start with the basics of modifying your rig. From what I got from you is the protection of the undercarriage. Get your rims and tires, and then get your suspension.
Yeah.
Vice versa, based on your vehicle. Next to last one. Best budget-friendly mod that you can think of.
Best budget-friendly mod. Well, you can make almost anything budget-friendly, depending on the brand that you buy. I think the best budget-friendly mod is, let's go again with tires,
Okay.
and let's go with a mid-tier brand. So instead of going with a Michelin, instead of going with a BFG or a Toyo, let's go down and let's get like a Hankook. Okay. Still a very high quality brand. You're not going to have like weird issues with that tire. It's going to, be round.
Yeah. It's going to perform a
It's
little
going to
bit.
perform pretty well.
Yeah.
It's going to have a long life to it, and it's going to be backed by a great warranty.
Okay.
So I think tires, again, I mean, we're going to go back to tires a lot, I think, throughout all of this. You're going to get better at asking questions that get me away from tires, I'm sure.
No, but I mean, it makes sense. Like you said, it's the only thing that's really touching the pavement or the dirt or the rocks or the sand, right? Like, it's really important to get proper traction for proper control for proper performance.
Absolutely.
So,
you answered the question for me.
So, no, I mean, I'm learning. You know what I mean? All right, last one I got rapid fire. These guys got for you. Light bars, cool or overrated?
Ooh.
I'm very judgmental on this one.
Yeah, you ready?
Yeah.
Ready for this? I think in the right scenarios can be cool, but most of the time are overrated.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think there's a certain point where there's a point of diminishing return with light.
Yeah.
So you can add like so much light, and then you add like another $1,000 light bar to it, and it doesn't like seem to add much more light.
Yeah.
So there's a diminishing return aspect of this. I think with pods, you can get as much light as you're ever going to need for less money than a light bar.
Yeah.
So I think I'm going to go with that. It's
overrated, right?
It's a little overrated.
I've seen cars with like, I don't know how long it is, like 48 inches, 36 inches.
60
like,
sometimes.
Why? And it's bolted to the hood. I'm like, that doesn't even make sense. You know what I mean? Please call Off-RoadX so you get this installed properly at least. So.
Yeah, we install a lot of light bars, and light bars are great.
Yeah.
And they're pretty simple from a standpoint of installation. So like if somebody isn't doing the install themselves, a light bar might be easier for them than multiple pod lights, because multiple pod lights need to be aimed. Each of them needs to be wired, individually and then collectively. And so there's just a lot more that goes on with a pod light. However, like I said, I really think you can get way more function out of a pod light. I think you can spend less money on pod lights and get the same amount of light performance out of it. So I'm going to go against the light bar here. And on top of all that, I don't own any light bars. None of my rigs have light bars.
That's why I like
They all have
you.
pods.
That's probably why I like you.
No, they have a lot of pods.
I think I've been blinded when I was behind you because lights got turned on to my face, though. So now I'm like, that guy's an a-hole, maybe. But no, overall good stuff, man.
Yeah.
And that kind of wraps up a little bit about our agenda today.
Yeah, I got something for you today.
What's that?
I got a part. I got something to talk about.
Hopefully it's a tire, because that's all I can.
It's not. What are you seeing?
I'm going to show the people, because this is one thing I do know, and this is an alternator. No, I'm just kidding. This is a battery.
Yeah.
I don't know how many amps, volts, don't even know how to read it. I just know when I used to go to AutoZone, they'd help me out. So What do we have here?
This is not just any battery. This is an
this?
anti-gravity battery. It's a lithium-ion battery.
Okay.
It's made from LiPo4 is the chemistry inside of it.
Okay.
And this is their restart batteries. Now, there is a ton of benefits to this, and I'm going to get into those. But we sell anti-gravity batteries, and if you want an anti-gravity battery, hit us up. We'll get you this battery as quickly as we possibly can. Have you ever been stranded?
Absolutely.
Have you ever needed a jump start?
Yes.
Well, anti-gravity builds it into their batteries. That's right. You get a restart. It's called the restart functionality. And it's like a separate battery enclave inside of this battery. And so like if you drained this battery completely dead, you could hit a little key fob or press the button that's right here on the top of it. And it gives you about 30 seconds of time to open your doors and start your vehicle. And then your alternator can recharge the battery. So you're never stranded. You don't need to bring jumper cables with you. You'll never need to jump again.
How pricey is this?
They are more expensive.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of benefits that go along with it. It says right on the side of the battery, long life, eco-friendly, low self-discharge, and on top of that, it weighs like half as much as your normal battery.
I picked that up, and typically batteries are pretty heavy.
Yeah, and this is
sweet.
This one in front of you is an 80 amp hour battery.
Okay.
So this is no joke. Like most vehicles come with like a 40 amp hour, some with a 60 amp hour.
Yeah.
This is 80 amp hours.
Oh, wow.
So you get the same footprint. It hooks right into your vehicle like a standard battery. Each restart battery comes with a wireless built-in jump start, so you're never stranded. If you leave your lights on, the anti-gravity battery restart will intelligently monitor the battery's voltage, and just before going dead, it will put itself into sleep. That's right. This thing will put itself to sleep. It'll save you enough reserve energy for a few more emergency starts. In the event that you come back to a dead battery, simply press the wireless key fob button or the on battery on top of it, the on button on top of the battery, start your car, and drive away. Additionally, these have full battery management systems on board that limit them from overcharge or over discharge or short circuit or thermal protections. And on top of all that, this thing should last you 8 to 10 years. So now I'm going to answer your question. How much are they? Well, you're going to spend about 2 to 3 times, sometimes 4 times as much as you would for a normal battery. That's right. So your normal battery, which is warranted for like 2 to 3 years, and it costs $300, this version is going to cost you about $1,000.
Oh, man.
But you get all those additional benefits with it. And this isn't for everybody, right? So, if you're just driving to work every single day, you're just going back and forth, you just use your regular battery, right?
Mm-hmm.
But if you're the overlander, if you're the off-roader, if you're getting way out there in the wilderness, if you've got all those light bars we just talked about, this is the battery that you want. If you got a bunch of refrigerators running, this is the battery that you want. This just gives you a lot more peace of mind, gives you more run time, just so many benefits to it. And it's just an incredible invention and an awesome product. And if anybody ever needs them, just give us a call. We'll walk you through which one that you'd want to get. Any other questions you got?
No, I mean, that makes sense, dude. If you're going on a solo trip, that's something you must have.
Yeah.
You can't jump off from a rock or a tree. So that's amazing.
Yeah.
No, I mean, that's great advice. It's a great product, and I'm going to have to give him one.
Yeah, absolutely. Like I said, not for everybody, but an awesome product, and we're happy to be a full-blown retailer for them.
Well, that wraps us up for our agenda today. If you guys have any comments or anything like that, shoot them our way, your favorite mods or anything we can answer on the next episode. We'd love to hear from you. Once again, check us out on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, all the social media sites. Come join the Rally Club. It's a big thing Pete's got. You want to give them a little insight
Absolutely.
on that?
Join the Rally Club. The Rally Club gets behind-the-scenes information about QXA, but it also gives you a ton more information throughout the week. So you'll get little snippets almost every single day, and we go into crazy, crazy detail. just to give you for instance, a few weeks back, we went over the fact that Colorado is using a lot more salt on the roads. And we called the state. We talked with the Department of Transportation. We got as much information as we could to help our members understand what's going to happen to their vehicles with all this crazy salt that's on the roads. So it's free to join. Just sign up. We'll let you in, and you get all this additional information that could be really helpful to you.
Heck yeah, man. I need to know that because I don't want my vehicle getting messed up.
There you go.
You gotta tell me this thing.
Yeah, you got to join if you haven't already.
Yeah. If you guys haven't checked it out yet, check out offroadx.com. You can give us a shout to local here in Castle Rock. We'd love to hear from you. Once again,
Spence,
Thanks again.
you're the best. Thank you very much, everybody, for watching. We really appreciate you. See you next week.
Later.